So it's my pleasure to introduce Jim Gilroy of the Frank Agents. You know, I was trying to remember when I first met Jim, and it was actually in this room some 6 years ago, 1845, Supper Club, and we discovered that Jim was on a path to an exit. Now at the time he was talking to someone who we dubbed God. That wasn't actually his full name, it was an abbreviation.
It was an abbreviation of his.
Yes. And then there was another guy. Jazz. Oh, cut. Anyway, 5 years later, after twisting, turning history, Jim ended up saying, as all we business owners do when you finally got rid of that monkey on your shoulder, I'm free, free at last, God Almighty, free at last. So Jim's going to tell us the story of how he broke free. There's a song in there somewhere.
That's very kind of you, James. And I will be adding some texture as well to the extraordinary product that you introduced me to. Actually, no, I will be adding a little bit of flavour, not a lot of texture, because I can hardly even remember how it works. I hate to
Do you remember the name?
I remember the name.
What was the name?
Well, it went. The sound plan became BOSS.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm very pleased about BOSS.
BOSS.
Yeah,
The
I came
boss.
up with that in the bath. Business Owners Succession Strategy.
Yes.
And
Genius.
Genius James Hunt product that enabled me to finally get out of the shackles.
The shackles.
So I hope you'll be able to take away a little bit of that from this conversation. But first off, I thought I'd just give a little bit of context to how I got myself into this business, this agency life. There were two lost cowboys walking through the desert. And they come across this tree draped in bacon. And one turns to the other and he says, "Partner, we're saved. There's a bacon tree." And he ran towards it, but he's mown down in a hail of bullets. You see, it wasn't a bacon tree, it was a ambush.
That's the way you're telling me.
I hope we get better.
Thanks, Vince. Actually, it's not completely irrelevant because the talk tonight has got quite a bit of wandering lost in the desert with a partner. It's got a bacon tree, or actually 4 bacon trees in total, and a bit of a ambush at the end. So not a completely irrelevant attempt at humour. Thank you. Yeah. So I began my working life on a doorstep. I left university with an appalling attempt at a chemistry degree. I kind of liked the lab coat and the specs and the blowing shit up kind of thought when I went in, and somewhere along the line I realised it was not for me, and I came out with the lowest grade on the list that year. If anybody, it was low, and I felt pretty wretched and why I'd given up 3 years of my life to try to be a chemist when I had no interest in it. So as quickly as I could, I took all of the savings that I put together from working in pubs in the holidays, and I bought a plane ticket and went to America. And I joined 250 British students at a sales school in Philadelphia as we became door-to-door salespeople. And somebody had talked me into it, and I thought this was a brilliant idea. Go and learn to sell. It's really valuable to know how to do that, and apparently you can make loads of money. They won't pay you anything. It's entirely commission-based.
And my father was a door-to-door salesman, by the way.
And in the SAS.
And in the SAS.
There you go. And not the airline.
Not
yeah. Mixes a mean gin and tonic. So I find myself in this sales school surrounded by other students and ex-students, and they're teaching us the American way to go out and say it. And we went and hit the doors, hit the door knockers of Pennsylvania. And a week, 10 days into it, I had my script. I knew exactly what I was sort of trying to sell, these photos of beautiful townships, normally surrounded by woods in the fall or a bit of coastline. And the idea was that there was maybe 50 or 60 houses on it, and you could sell it to everyone there, you know, because there was a community. So I thought I knew it all. I went and knocked on all of these doors, and nobody wanted to buy one of my pictures. I had the pitch, but nobody wanted to buy one from me. So after 10 days, I'm nearly running out of money, and I'm thinking I'm going to have to go home, tail between my legs. It's just awful. I went to my sales manager. I said, "Can you come and help me?" And he followed me around, and he said, "Yeah, I can see exactly why. You're just pitching people. You just pitch. You haven't worked out yet that you should be just telling stories. You should be engaging people. You should be having a conversation. It's just one way, not, you know, classic building empathy, whatever. Storytelling." So I thought, oh, brilliant. Okay, storytelling. So I've got to build up stories. Every time I go to a new area with my picture, I've got to have a story. And when you hadn't been there very long and you didn't have any story, I thought, well, just make one up. So I'd walk into these sort of areas and knock on the door, and I'd say, "Oh, you know, I met this guy earlier, and actually he had an affair with this woman earlier, and they burned this house here," and then they'd sort of, I said, "If I got that wrong," and then they'd set me right, you know, and eventually, you know, we kind of got established a bit of a rapport. And then on a particularly boring day, I'd say I'm a British student. I'm actually the wayward son of a guy called Earl Grey, and I'm trying to, you know, learn the ways of business, and I'm 14th in line to the throne. I hate to say it, I came up with all of this crap, but the Americans just lapped it up. They loved it. God, it's on camera. And 3 weeks into it, I was climbing the weekly sales ladder, and about halfway through my 3-4 months there, I was 2/3 of the way, and by the time I finished it, I was the top salesman on the East Coast of America. And I felt $1 million. I could sell anything to anybody. No, I could just sell pictures to gullible people, essentially, but still. So I went back to the UK, and I did a bit over there. And I went back to America, and I recruited a sales team, and I did that for a bit. And I thought, right, okay, it's time to get a proper job. So advertising. I thought, this is brilliant. I've got this link in advertising, as James said. My grandfather was a famous advertising creative. Toucans, Bisto Kids, and all that sort of stuff. And I thought, this sounds really cool. I can't create myself, but I'll go and be one of those, you know, county exec types in advertising. I managed to talk myself into an agency called Ogilvy and Mather, and went to this new building development in the East End of London called Canary Wharf. And they was just literally putting it all up, and we were, you know, one of the first tenants in there, and it was literally, you know, it was great, fantastic time. Actually, it was an awful lot of bullshit, awful lot of it. Agencies charging people huge amounts of money and not delivering an awful lot. I discovered later, but still, you know, these were great times. I was learning quite a lot, and it was about that sort of time that I met a woman.
Ooh.
I know it's nothing to do with the talk really, but your parachute story intrigued me earlier, so I just thought I'd throw this in here.
Right.
But I met a girl, and because again with being filmed, I can't give a name, so I need perhaps I'll call her Doris.
That's not sexy.
It's not sexy, maybe Trixie. Oh, that's a porn star. Maybe Dolores. Dolores. Okay, so Dolores. I met Dolores. Dolores' brother was this enormous gorilla rugby player, and he shared a house with my sister. So I only ever met Dolores in this house, and I was never going to be able to ask her out. So I just kind of couldn't for months and months, and everybody knew that Jim wanted to ask Dolores out, but I couldn't do it. So I came up with this plan that maybe Dolores worked for a charity, and I said to Dolores, I want to raise some money for your charity. I have terrible vertigo. I feel sick in a first floor house looking out the window, I'll jump out of an aeroplane to try to, raise some money for your charity. And she said, oh, that's fantastic, Jim. I'd love that. If you just, raise some money for us. So I called up my best mate, Luke, and I said, we're going to go and jump out of an aeroplane together. And he said, what? I said, no, because it's going to get me in with Dolores. Come with me to... So we borrowed Dolores' car, because I just had a shitty old motorbike. And we went down to somewhere in Kent, and we trained for half a day to jump out of an aeroplane. So we get right at 12,500 feet, we're strapped to these two guys. I'm strapped to the coolest dude you've ever met, called Clem. Clem was super cool. He was cool, calm Clem. And he hardly spoke to me. When we were going to jump, he just took this straw Stetson off. I remember he just hung it in the back of the plane, and then he put his parachute, hat on, and he was like, we're just going to go. So I go first. We jumped out of the plane, I'm strapped to him, and as we went, there was a kind of boing, and the pin that holds the reserve parachute snapped, and the parachute shot into the back of the plane, hits my mate in the face, and we're falling out, and there's a parachute kind of attached to us, and they managed to throw the parachute out after us, but we're falling like this with just this sort of this parachute just doing like this above me. And cool, calm Clem is going, and he was absolutely not cool, calm at all. And he's fighting, finally he gets it under control, and like the parachute opens, and it's like this moment of God, thank God that's over. And I said, oh, are we okay now? Are we all right? Is that over? And he went, we've got another slight problem. Look to your left. And we would fallen through the flight path into Gatwick, and there's a 737, like really big, like just kind of too close. And we managed to kind of get out of the way, and it took us 20 minutes because the thermals kept taking us up again, and it was like, we finally get down onto the ground, and I thought, oh, God. And they said, would you like to do it again? They said, so sorry, it's the worst accident we've ever had here. Would you like to do it again? I was like, really? Never, ever, never. So I went back to London. I take Dolores' car back, and I knocked on her door. And I guess this was my last kind of doorstep pitch. I said to her, Dolores, I've got to tell you, I've a bit of a moment of clarity, but this was all a bit of a ruse, and I've been trying to ask you out for the last 6 months, and sorry. Nearly died today, but thought I'd better in pursuit of. And she said, well, you better come in. So that was, I guess, my favourite sales pitch on the door, and probably the last one I ever did. So anyway, a couple of years later, things didn't work out with Dolores, and I got on my little motorbike, and I went to Amsterdam. And I wanted to do something in motorbikes, and I got a job as the person who launches all of the motorbikes for Yamaha Europe. And I travelled all over the world. It was an amazing job organising events in Australia, in Japan, in Las Vegas, in Sicily, in South Africa, whatever, all over the world. 2 years of travelling, amazing job. And during the course of that, I met this guy who was my boss, Tom. And Tom was a cracking bloke, and I thought, if I'm ever going to have a partner in business, Tom is going to be the guy I'd really like to work with. And I said, Tom, do you want to set up a company together? And he, to his credit, he said, all right then. And Yamaha, amazingly, said, we'll support you and we'll come on board as your first client. And we created this agency, and it became the Frank Agency, and we kind of wandered in the wilderness with it for many years. But it was a lot of fun. And then Tom decided, weirdly, one day, he said, this agency lark is too much for me, I want to become an accountant. I want to become a tax accountant. Yeah. I want to help people with their tax. So I was a bit dumbfounded by this, but I said, okay, if you must. But you're the business guy, the numbers guy, and I just do kind of the agency stuff. And I had not looked at the numbers in 10 years. I hadn't a clue what was going on. So 2 years later, of course, we hit a bit of a problem around the numbers, because I'm still not looking at the numbers. And I decided I need a partner. I need somebody who can help me out here. And that became the process of trying to exit. And the process took about 5-6 years to finally get out. And that's where I kind of met James along the way. So long story short, that James was kind of unlocked the opportunity for me to get out of it. So the first company that I knocked on the door of was our neighbour. And I said, we've worked together in the past, would you like us to kind of buddy up? And they said, yeah, brilliant, yeah, great idea. Just need to meet our chairman. He's a bit of a strange bugger, ex-IBM. Probably turns all the toasters and kettles off when he goes out in case they catch fire. One of those people, very, very risk averse. Goes on holiday, turns everything off type of thing. And I met him, and sure enough, he was having none of it, so that was one blown. Then we met another company in London who spent 4 months talking to them, trying to set a deal up, and then I said, let's just do a project together, one project. And I thought they'd be good, they've got smart sofas and everything in there, kind of waiting area, they've got really posh coffee, they're going to be amazing. And of course they were completely incompetent. They made a complete mess of what we wanted to do. So I learned there that to try before you buy was really important. And then we shacked up with this other company, which we alluded to earlier, and we went under their roof, and we met another business, and James joined. Sorry? God. God was part of his name, and he was a deity. He was a deity in his own space. And so we did this clever deal. We thought, I will buddy up with the company I'm shacked up with, and we'll get bought by God. But that wasn't meant to be, because again we did another deal. We did a try before we buy, and it all fell apart. And it was at about this point, it just seemed like it was incredibly hard. I'd been like 3 years going to meetings and talking about people, how can I get rid of my business? It was like a bad smell that was following me around. And James introduced me to this idea called a vendor-funded management buyout. And I probably will leave most of it to him to explain, really, but the principles of which are, if you can find a group of people within a company that you run, and you think they might be able to run your business in the future, and you can hand over, you democratise the ownership, you can hand over the keys to them, that's kind of cool, isn't it? Because you don't have somebody who tries to buy your business or take you over and merge with you, who beats you up all the time and won't give you any money that they've said they will, and you have control because you're working with a team of people. So it's a very clever system. That brings people through the process of learning to own and run a business at a pace that's manageable. And the business generates, so the growth within the business generates the funds that buys you out. Does that kind of make sense?
Absolutely.
In principle, yeah. And we set ourselves up in 2000 and something like 18 to do this. And I had a team of 3, which ended up being 2 because one of them was a wobbly leg on the stool. And 3 of us went into this together, and we said we have 3 years and we'll grow the business and it will give me an exit at the top. Don't know if I really believed it, but I kind of told myself I did. But very luckily, it coincided with meeting a man who wanted to build a car company from scratch at that time. I can't say his name again because we're being videoed, but he is a billionaire petrochemicals magnate who decided he wanted to create a car company from scratch, and we happened to be introduced to him. And hey, why not? You're the UK's wealthiest man. We'll help you. And he helped us actually generate terrible culture, awful person, say no more. But he helped us create the growth that allowed us to turn the key a year early. And Ian and James, just over a year, 14, 15 months ago, we began the process of reading. I basically changed my job. My job became full-time reading James Hunt emails, which I essentially do from about 6 in the morning to about midnight. And I'm
I've got that job now.
Yeah, have you? Yeah.
I do that now.
Yeah, it's almost something you should put on a business card. we started that process, and we finished it all up in November last year, and I had 2 people who were going to take over the business with my support, and it didn't quite work out the way I wanted to, sadly. One of them had to leave the business because his marriage fell apart, and suddenly everything seemed a little bit shaky again. But we went back to the very first conversation that we had right at the beginning, our neighbour with the weird chairman who'd long since moved on, and knocked on their door and said, "Do you fancy taking this ramshackle bunch of idiots under your wing?" And on 31st of July this summer, they signed on the dotted line. And so a little bit of freedom was generated, which felt great. And what I've been doing since is, this is my shameless ambush pitch, I'm afraid, that's going to conclude this ramble, is I've spent a career making rich people even richer, I think is a sort of safe way of saying it really, working in the automotive sector and a lot of technical companies that we've given a reason, a purpose and a creative boost to over the years. And I felt it was really important to do something where I could tell my daughter when I'm 80 that actually I did my bit in some way, rather than just promoting consumerism and capitalism. I felt like I could sort of give a bit back to the environmental crisis that we're all facing at the moment. So I got involved with this small group of people called Clean Engineering, and what we're doing at the moment is we're building engineering, we're taking clever engineering ideas that are coming out of universities, technical universities in the UK. And did you know that 97% of all good ideas that come out of universities in the UK kind of just wither on the vine? There's the funding over here is rubbish. You know, there's not enough government incentives. There's not enough culture around. You know, sip of water. Lost you, little girl. There's not enough support for these opportunities to kind of fly. And so I've come together with some people who really know how to make it happen, and they've got engineering expertise, and they can bring in financiers and accounting people even, who knew, and lawyers, and creative people, and marketing people. And we're taking these little budding ideas and we're going to make them fly. And the idea is that by 2030 we've created a stable of 8 to 10 businesses that have got such great green credentials that are going to save cumulatively 1 billion tonnes of CO2 emissions by 2030. That's the plan. And the first one went live on Crowdcube today. It's called Salinity Solutions, and I'm going to invite you to have a little look at it. The reason why you're going to have a little look at it, because there is an ugly paradox at the heart of our rush to buy electric vehicles. Electric vehicles are great. The idea, the principle is brilliant. Imagine a vehicle that is built using clean power from recycled materials, and then is charged up using clean energy, green energy, and moves people around the place. It's brilliant, but there's a huge amount of lithium that goes into building electric vehicles. In the case of some of the Tesla models, there's 7,000 lithium cells in there. And it's a sort of bit of a nasty secret in the industry that lithium mining is the dirtiest form of mining.
It's dreadful.
It's dreadful. Thank you, Vince. From a health and safety perspective, you know, the reason it's done...
Not for social, for economic, for anything, it's dreadful.
But also from health and safety, 80% of lithium comes out of China, where people are essentially working as slaves. It leaves huge scars on the landscape. It toxifies water, groundwater. It uses massive amounts of CO2 and energy, and then they transfer it to somewhere else that needs that refines it, and then they move it somewhere else that turns it into a battery, and then they put the battery in a vehicle, and then they move it somewhere else that it's going to be in the world. So it's just like it's a disaster. It should be as an embarrassment really for the automotive sector at the moment. I love electric vehicles, don't get me wrong, I arrived in one tonight, but there needs to be a change around this, and this technology is great because the technology of salinity solutions that has been come out of Birmingham University is really clever. It takes lithium from groundwater, specifically in Cornwall, where there are enormous lithium reserves, and it concentrates it. So instead of hard rock mining, where you open up massive open cast mines and take the rocks out, smash them up, and then mix them with water and then distill off, all of that nasty stuff, you can take groundwater out of the deep geothermal water, you can concentrate it 20 times, and then you can put it through a direct lithium extraction process. It's nodding sagely over there. And the clever thing is that these guys can concentrate it more than anybody, and they can do it on a very small footprint, micro footprints, like the size of a couple of chest freezers, and they can do it for radically less energy than anybody else. It's a really clever bit of technology, and then somebody else can take that away and do the extraction piece. We took it to Crowdcube. It went live today to crowdfund it. I think it's something like 65% funded already. It's £280,000 have been raised, literally just like that. And if anyone wants to get involved with it, pop your email on a sheet of paper and I'll send you some details about it. And just, if you fancy chucking 10 quid in, whatever, 20 quid. I hope you'll at least double your money, but at the very least you'll also be promoting something that's a great piece of British technology that's going to help extract lithium in the UK to help build gigafactories here using green energy, clean lithium, that then hopefully, if we can use our wind and solar infrastructure to charge these vehicles, means that the net effect of having vehicles on the road is not as bad as it could be. I'm not saying it's going to be perfect, but it's not going to be as bad as it could be. If not, the jeopardy is this, is that if we continue to build all the electric vehicles that are predicted, which is about 145 million of them are going to be on the world's roads by 2030, if we extract all the lithium through traditional hard rock mining, it's going to cost the planet 1 billion tonnes of CO2. And that's not just a figure I've plucked out of the air, that's a figure that's been internationally ratified. It's a horrific figure. So every little thing that you can do could help. And if you send me your email, then I'll keep you posted. We've got a fantastic piece of very clever solar cooker technology coming up, and another thing that's going to help industrial waste. And that's what's given me a little bit more of a sense of purpose in these last few months. So that's it, I think. Thank you very much for listening.
I'm sure there'll be some questions for Jim.
Sure. Do you have your own James Hunt folder? do you read first or siphon in then read?
Oh, that's good. Yeah. I made a mistake early on. Because it was heavy shit. So I made it early on. I made the mistake of starting to print stuff out. Oh no! And then there was just printer cartridge after printer cartridge after paper ring. I was like, no way. This is like not green.
So now you've got to make up all the trees you've killed now.
Yeah, exactly. So every fourth word now I use. James, not there, but James loves a long email. I love a really short, pithy, short one.
Sorry.
We love
So,
it.
we love it really,
a few
James.
serious questions for Jim.
I've looked into lithium mining in the Belgian Congo and various places like that. It's generally suppressed as what's actually happening. Children in holes in the ground, being forced there to say they're being educated. So if they've got schools, their family need them to do this work and the rest of it. So if what you're saying is bringing some water in Cornwall and getting lithium from it.
Yeah, so about a kilometre beneath the surface, hot brine. So it's kind of concentrated down there. There's
Yeah.
big swathes of lithium they've identified
Okay.
under Cornwall.
We've got to be careful about radon 222, which is a phenomenon in Cornwall, to make sure it doesn't kind of get mixed up. But maybe we'll get more energy if that's what we're
Yeah, you can use the heat, and then what you do is just pop the water back down again.
Yes.
So actually your
Yeah.
footprint is pretty much zero.
I found what you've said is exciting, fascinating, and thank you for sharing.
Oh, thank you, Vince.
Yeah. I kind of would dream, hope, pray that it comes into kind of a wonderful commercial and successful venture for the people who are doing it, and saves the world. Really. It's pretty special.
The interesting thing from my point of view is my great heroes. So have I told you this story? Matthew Bolton, James Watt,
Oh yeah,
William Murphy.
the three.
So that was, they effectively
Birmingham.
applied their new improved steam engine to extract water from the Cornish tin and copper mines. So it's interesting one's going full circle back
It
in
is.
time.
And what's really interesting is that in order for Cornish Lithium, who hopefully are going to be the first sort of commercial partner of Salinity Solutions, is in order for them to find all of the deposits of lithium underground, they had to go through the archives and find all the 200-year-old tin mine maps.
Right.
Yeah.
So the only maps
Well,
they've got.
my family are from St Ives, doing copper mining in a little place called Skinner's Bottom. And all that history going back for 4, 5, 6 generations,
Wow,
I might have a pop down there and have a look at what you're doing. Wonderful.
fantastic.
It's wonderful.
Lovely.
So I think it's brilliant. I just want to say thank you very much for the talk. Thank you for listening. I think it's a great demonstration of British technology at this place. And I think we underestimate so many of our engineers. They've a big brain drain over the years. And I think it's brilliant. What size bore are you using to drill?
God, we're not doing the drilling. The salinity just concentrates using reverse osmosis, batch reverse osmosis. Other partners will do the drilling.
Yeah.
We will then process what comes out of the ground.
Okay, and just a question, how much employment will be for Cornwall and how much money will stay in Cornwall?
That's a very good point. Cornish Lithium is based in Cornwall. They're a Cornish company, and most of the people who back them are from Cornwall in their crowdfunding efforts. So there's no reason why it can't be good for Cornwall. It's good for the Midlands because that's where this technology comes from, and where it's actually going to happen is going to happen in Cornwall. And who knows, Elon Musk might come along and build a gigafactory in the southwest to harvest all of the
Would we
lithium that's
particularly
coming.
want that?
No, I hope not.
Well, you never know. I mean, if you're going to continue building cars, what's the point of having the gigafactory in Indonesia, and then you're shipping lithium over there? If you know,
No, but that's when you get a British technologist to create a British car, not Elon Musk, and you start again with production in the UK.
Yeah.
That is exactly what we must be doing going forward. We rely on these people like Elon Musk, who's put a whole load of satellites up in the air. I think they went up. I think it's just brilliant what you're doing. I'm very interested in solar technology because nobody tells you about how dirty these industries are. Now, I've done some work as an actually got involved with a gold company in Sierra Leone, which was trying to actually make sure that all the profits went back into Sierra Leone because Africa's been raped by everybody.
Yeah.
And particularly China recently, where assets now belong to the Chinese because they lend money at very high rates of interest. They default, and a couple of ports are now taken over by the Chinese. It's fun, you know, and of course, the global system relies on small groups of people that they make very wealthy. but it's not the people. And it really is difficult to re-engineer a lot of that thinking where the people benefit. And you look at the diamond mines in Sierra Leone and Ghana, and they're just, I mean, it's appalling. So I just think it's fantastic.
Well, another technology that we're working on for that part of the world is a solar cooker. So you probably know already that 3 billion people around the world still cook over wood or charcoal.
Yeah.
In Kenya, they've just run a clean air project, and they've identified that the predominantly women who cook 5 hours a day is the equivalent to them smoking 40 cigarettes a day, and their children are as well. And there's lots of companies out there who have produced cleaner burn stoves that are helping them, but they're still only reducing the number of particulates by half, so they're still smoking 20 cigarettes a day, and 3.5 million people in sub-Saharan Africa are dying of particulate-based diseases every year. So this technology out of Fareham, near Portsmouth, these guys have got this clever heat battery, they call it, and it's designed to heat your home. And it's a big block of aluminium and basalt of granite. And over the course of the day, or the night, on cheap electricity, this thing heats up. This big block of mass heats up, and then you use it during the day. You pump water around it, and it heats your home, and it provides hot water. It's a clever idea.
Yeah, it's great.
Caldera is the name of the company. So while they were doing that, some bright spark within their R&D team says, well, why can't we turn this into a cooker as well? So they wired up a small core to a solar panel, and they put a vacuum chamber around it, and they created something that could, over the course of 6 hours, reach 450 degrees C. And you put a top on it, and it'll stay that hot for 12 hours with a vacuum chamber over it, which means you can give it to somebody in the developing world, and they can cook on it with no particulates and they can cook at night, and they can cook in the daytime, and as long as there's a reasonable amount of solar power during the day, and theoretically also they can plug into it, and they can charge their a phone, or they can run fans and solar lights off it as well. And that's a really interesting project which we're looking at the moment, and we're just building 100 test units, and they're going to go into Kenya, and we've got a distributor there that's going to tell us, give us some insights into how we have to develop the technology in order to work successfully there, and Nigeria as well, and in the eastern DRC as well. It's huge. It's just absolutely staggering that the problem. But how do you get it to a price point where people can afford it? How do you change behaviours so people know how to use it? How do you educate people so they just stop tearing down trees and using charcoal? And it's a big global problem.
But anyway, I think it's great, and I think just as an idea for Sophie, the celebration of British engineering, so often forgotten, is something that is fundamental to reignite what is one of the great British skills, is engineering. And it's kind of been lost over the years.
Yeah.
And I think that would be a really good thing for a kind of celebration on a monthly basis of the great products that are being produced by local engineers.
Yeah, lovely.
Mm.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Jim.
Yeah,
That was
thank you.
absolutely fascinating and very positive.